back to our picture. Again, the whole thing is about emotional stress and the different toxins. And again, Dr. Haas is going to look at that. He's going to help us understand how to deal with these. And there we have Dr. Haas looking very regal with silver white hair. And these are his books. As a matter of fact, the way I got to know about him was this book right over here. Wait a minute, I think we have a picture here. Yeah, there you go. This book right here was actually given to me on my birthday a couple of years ago, and I was going through the information, and really, I was really, really impressed. It's called Staying Healthy with the Seasons. We have about, it's on its second edition, but has had about 24 printing. This is, well, Dr. Haas, are we on the 24th printing?
Oh, no, we're more like the 30th printing.
Oh, my God.
It came out originally in 1981. Really one of the early natural health field.
Wow. Wow. Well, I tell you, folks, this is a book to get. Staying Healthy with the Seasons, and I'm sure Dr. Haas will talk some more about it. Of course, we can't talk about detoxification without the detox diet, and he's written a good book on that, too. So, and he's going to talk more about his books later on, too. And there you have him again. And Sherry, would you like to introduce Dr. Haas?
I would be honored to. Okay, Dr. Elson Haas is a medical practitioner with more than 35 years experience in patient care, and he's been instrumental in the development and practice of an integrative medicine clinic that he began in 1984, and he directs that also, and it's called Preventative Medical Center. I hope I said that correctly. And at this multidisciplinary center with a range of experienced practitioners, patient causes and natural remedies as much as possible. Dr. Haas, as David mentioned, is also a popular author of 7 books in the area of health and nutrition and detoxification, and I'm sure he'll be making Now Medicine, and he's a health and some other health education programs for children and families, such as Anatomics Comics. That one sounds very interesting. Maybe we'll get him back and we can do a focus on children.
Yeah, we can play a few
of that. So if you survive tonight, then we'll try to have you again. So, okay, so Dr. Haas, we will turn it over to you. And again, thank you so much for agreeing to do this with us tonight.
It's a pleasure to be with you and everyone up there.
To tell you this, the idea of detox is something that from my culture, and I'm from Africa, we probably are not too familiar with this, probably because we're not exposed to the kind of toxins that people in the Western world are exposed to, microbes and all infections like malaria and all that. But it's so interesting how many people are talking about detox. As a matter of fact, my chiropractor, she was asking about this when I mentioned to her we're going to have you on the webinar, and she's all talking about doing a detox for a liver cleanse or a gallbladder cleanse, and we're like, what is all this about? But I understand now you're starting with a group of people doing a spring.
Into talking about some basics of health that we're applying the whole idea of detoxification to. You see on the slide, I have both my websites, my personal website that has a lot of health information, elsonhaas.com, pmcmarin.com, and lots of good information on both those. And I have my books and the descriptions of my books. There's one on my website, and the article is called Purification Process, which just gives people a good overview about the importance of detoxification. It's a 10-day spring cleanse, and I often do master cleanse, which we'll get into a little later, which is the lemonade diet, which has gotten really popular. And I have a group of 20-plus people who are doing this with me, who are doing, some of them are doing a little lighter program, but most of them are doing juice cleansing. When you get through the first couple of days, they're often a little transitional, and I'm just starting to feel really clear and really good. I mean, just before we started, I'm stretching on the floor, I'm drinking water and juice, and so now this coming week, and the reason I do these kinds of cleanses is drop my body. I'm always someone who's been challenged with my weight ever since I was a little boy, and I have to, I so love food. That's why I need to detox so regularly.
Mm-hmm.
But when I did my first cleanse, David and Sherry, it was back in 1975, and I went and heard this man talk about the master. I did it, and it was a very profound, wonderful experience for me. I remember I had allergies and congestion for 20 years. Every day I woke up congested. I sneezed often. I got colds more frequently because of that, beginning of this cleanse, and I could breathe clearly. I just took a breath, and I was needing less sleep, and I started to feel better and better, and my body let go of about 20 pounds, which was probably mostly water weight, but 10 days of not eating and drinking lemonade, was really good. It gets rid of a lot of the excess water, which I wrote, this idea of false fat, one of my books, which is about food reactions and weight and water retention and all that. So, but when I did this, I said, wow, I started to feel so clear and so good and so energized. I said to myself, this is how you want to feel. This is how I want to feel. It matters what I put into my mouth. I have to start really learning about health and nutrition. So let me give you, now if we can go to the next slide, we can start talking a little bit about the basics of health and why I think cleansing and detox is so important.
Well, absolutely, Dr. Haas, before you just go into that, I have to say this, that you're one of the few, and I know there's a growing number of doctors who are getting into this, but you're one of the few who basically cover all the four bases that we talk about health, the mind, the nutrition, and all that, but at the same time, you're still effectively practicing as a medical practitioner. And I think it's just highly valuable to people to be able to see an MD combine all those things and not just be single-minded or single-focused on just one aspect.
Well, and that's what now medicine is about. It's about really bringing health into the healthcare system rather than just the disease treatment and disease management. And that's also the message for the individual, is if you don't bring health into your life, you're going to be part of the disease management system. And, no matter how old you are now, you can change and make a difference in your health. So here's what affects our health, okay? What we eat, how we exercise, sleeping, most people don't get proper sleep, learning to deal with stress, managing our stress. Stress is the way we relate to things, not the activities themselves or the issues or the relationships, whatever it is. It's how we relate to them. We can either have something stress us. It could be as simple as a cat running over our lawn, or it could be a major fiasco. But, we don't necessarily have to respond in a stressful way. And the key is, one of my basic maxims in healthcare, I tell this to many of my new patients, is how we look and feel is a result of how we live. And if we want a different result, something has to change. If our body is an outcome of all of our behaviors and our basic, there's our genetics and other factors, but it's mostly our behavior. And many of the problems that people have now are results of 30 years or more, or sometimes less, of bad habits, really. And that's what really we're going to focus on now, if we continue on. So the next slide is the 5 keys, the 5 basics of staying healthy. And
it's a little lag, but it's coming up.
Oh, it's a little slow, yeah, okay. So to me, when we look at after I became a doctor, I said, I need to learn about health and I need to bring health into practice. And really, I said, okay, well, here's what really, the difference of an integrated medicine approach is you look at the cause. The different question. A lot of, if we look at a Western approach, when people get sick, they usually say, well, what can I take to make this go away? But a more integrated or natural medicine question is, why is my body experiencing this? What are the factors? What is needed for me to improve my health? And so, that's really, to me, the basic component, and the 5 factors are the next slide if you want to push your button again there.
Sure.
And this is, the keys are what we've already talked a little bit about: nutrition, exercise, sleep, stress management, and our attitude. Now, you mentioned that in the beginning, too. Having a healthy attitude. So the only body I have, I'm going to treat it with love. So when I start doing that, and when I encourage my patients to do that also, well, guess what happens? If you love yourself, aren't you going to feed yourself better? You're going to make sure you exercise. You make sure you get sleep. You learn with people in a different way. You learn how to communicate and get over your fear of being, whatever it is, rejected or judged or things like that. So to me, this is important. And then we can keep going up here. But, nutrition, basically, I have a 1,000-page nutrition book that's used by many schools like Clayton College, which is a really good online or distance learning school, Clayton College for Natural Health. They use my book in their programs. Many nutrition students, but many families use it also. And it's a 1,000-plus page book on really understanding nutrition from A to Z. And but I could summarize that into one line. And the one line is eat wholesome foods and avoid junk and chemicals. And we're going to get into what that means. So we really want to. Part of the message of staying healthy with the seasons, David, is that we need to get back to nature. And when I wrote that book, it was during the time that I was studying about nutrition and exercise and Chinese medicine. and the elements and herbs and just the mind-body connection. And this was all that I studied in the 70s. He said, I need to write about this. I need to figure out how do I bring all this into the medical system. And that's what's that textbook that incorporates all these different components. But when that book first came out, people said, this is the Back to Nature book. That's the message. We have to get back to nature and start eating more fresh foods. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's move forward now. And here's one of my favorite slides and favorite concepts now, and I think this whole idea of understanding the body chemistry is important. But I like to simplify things. I'm an integrator, a synthesizer, and a simplifier, if I can define myself a little bit, at least from a philosophical point of view. And to me, there's one basic disease, one basic problem, and that's cellular malfunction or dysfunction. And there's two causes for that. There's deficiency of all the nutrients that we need, which are basically vitamins, minerals, amino acids from proteins, fatty acids from good oil-containing foods, and phytonutrients is a new one I put in the last decade, because phytonutrients are the substances, the bioflavonoids and the carotenoids and other natural biochemicals that feed our body, and we don't even know all about these yet. There's many that have functions that we're still to be discovered, but they are important, and so it's not just vitamins and minerals, it's all these different components of food. When our cells, we have trillions of cells that do millions of functions or thousands of functions at least every second of every day. When we don't have all the nutrients we need, we can't necessarily function optimally. Just like a young person or an elder even, if you don't have all the nutrients you need, your body won't grow to its potential. Your brain won't work to its potential, and that's really what we need. The other cause of cell dysfunction is toxins, and that's what you had your man that you showed with with everything from electromagnetic radiation to chemicals to mind stress, so all those things. Toxins, which are chemicals and metals that get into our food, air, and water, and that are created in our body from stress and even intense exercise, for example. Those toxins can interfere with enzymes and cell function. We need our enzymes to facilitate all the functions that we do. So when we look at the way we get out of balance nutritionally, we either are getting deficient of things or we're getting toxic. Now today we're going to talk a little bit more about the toxin part and how do you handle that. Typically, if someone's deficient, what do they need? They need to be nourished. They need to get all their nutrients in. And if someone's toxic, they need to stop some of those toxins, slow them down or avoid them totally, and still nourish themselves. Most people in our culture aren't just one or the other. If you're eating a poor diet and you're eating, bread and cheese and, chips and candy and sodas and, you're not getting a high amount of fruits and vegetables and the nutrients that you need, well, your body is deficient, but it's also toxic. And, obese malnutrition is something I write about and, talk about in my, seminars that I teach. But many people who are overweight are also depleted, and they need nourishment, and they need better quality food. So the idea is we're gonna let go of some of the bad things, and that's what the message of this whole webinar is. Get rid of some of the bad things and bring in some of the good things, and what happens? Wow, we start to get better. We start to feel better. And when I do my groups, I watch the transformation of people. It's amazing how many typical symptoms and problems that people have, even from high blood pressure, to just general digestive problems, skin rashes, that when they do a detoxification at the end of that, they don't have those anymore. And I'll get into some of the problems that people have. I wanted to go into a little bit to the acid alkaline. I write about that in Staying Healthy with the Seasons and Staying Healthy with Nutrition and the Detox Diet. There's several sections there. I have a special on my website for all those books, just by the by, but I'm really not here to promote. I'm here to really support you in educating you to improve your health, and that's really what my goal and my mission in my whole career has been, to teach people how to be their own doctor so I can just go hang out at the beach more. But I'm still working a lot. So acid alkaline is really the balance, and dealing with stress and oxidation is important. So the next slide now is some of the ways that we get deficient in our health is that we don't get the right foods in. Other ways is that we have medicines or things that we're taking that are interfering with the nutrients getting in, or more even common, that we have digestive problems, which many people have, or we're just under stress and our ability to digest and assimilate is weakened. So when we don't get all those nutrients in, we are having problems with the deficiency concern. Okay, let's go through these next slides a little more quickly now, so we can give some of these concepts here. So the key, we need to support ourselves. I'm a fan of some basic nutritional support, extra antioxidants, particularly because oxidative stress is such a problem. Making sure we get plenty of water. Mineral deficiency is much more common than almost any other kind of problem because the competitive absorption we have. A lot of things interfere with mineral absorptions. Many people have low hydrochloric acid in their stomachs because of chronic stress and bad diets. They don't digest and assimilate things like calcium and iron and zinc, which need a more acid environment, things like that. We need B vitamins. We need our good fatty acids. Vitamin D is the hot nutrient of the last few years, and it's a lot of people are deficient, even if you're getting sunshine and a lot of things. Okay. Then the next slide.
What's up?
Oh, nutritional problems. So here's the things we want to look at in our diet. Now, when I do talks, whether there's 30 people or a few thousand people, when I ask people, how many do? Well, anyways, I'll come to that in a second with the next slide. But here's the main things we want to eliminate: is refined sugar and flour, getting rid of all the white powders that people base their diet on. Too much animal fats and proteins, which there's a lot more chemical potentially we're exposed to. The hydrogenated oils and fats. Chemicals. I mean, the best way to reduce your chemical exposure is to clean up the things you use in your house, from your laundry detergent to your soaps, to your dishwasher, to what you're using on your body, which is really important also. And then we have the caffeine, alcohol, nicotine, and other substances and sugar that I have in there too. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see that I have this, one of my favorite acronyms is SNACS, S-N-A-C-C, which stands for sugar, nicotine, alcohol, caffeine, and chemicals. Now, when I work with people, this is the first level I look at. What are your habits to these? When's the last time you took a break? The message of the new detox diet is that we should be able to take a break from these substances. Now, as I said earlier, when I do talks, I would say 95% of people, or less than 5% of people will raise their hand who doesn't have a daily habit to at least one of these. Probably 50% of people have more than one. Some people are caffeine and alcohol, caffeine and sugar. They do these every day. And you see some of the problems that come from sugar, energy and mood problems, hormonal imbalance. Women and menstrual problems come from too much sugar. That's an Oriental medicine, a Chinese medicine relationship. We know nicotine is an inflammatory toxin. Alcohol affects people's weight, their sugar metabolism. I think it's a precursor for diabetes and other problems. And it has so many potential side effects. Caffeine, to me, that's probably one of the more common things that people do and accept these days as a regular stimulant to get themselves going. But that's only because their health is not as vital. I personally don't like coffee, so I haven't really had an issue with it. Doesn't mean I didn't have my share of sodas growing up. But we get caffeine from so many places, and many people in our culture basically stimulate themselves during the day to kind of get to be functional. That's usually caffeine and sugars, and they sedate themselves later to try and rest, and so they can sleep properly. Well, the two most common problems we see in our culture in the Western world are fatigue and insomnia. And when you don't balance the stimulation and sedation, you either don't have the energy you need or you don't sleep well. And chemicals just in general are there. So the snacks, if we go to the next slide, I mean, my first approach is to eliminate these abuses. And the message of the new detox diet is I want you to understand and have a proper, healthy relationship with these substances. So it's not all about doing them every day. I want you to be able to see, because one of the things we do when you read the article, purification process, you see that part of that process means taking a break from the things we just so regularly do and see how we feel. Now, most of us who are doing substances and foods, and I have, I don't know if it's another slide here, but have one of the detox programs I do with people is to get off the big five, which is sugar, caffeine, alcohol, wheat products, and dairy products. And to many people, that's the majority of their diet. When they do that, usually you're going to feel some withdrawal. You're not going to feel good for a couple of days. But almost always by day 3, you start to feel better, and you start to build your energy, and you start to have your disconnection from these bad habits. And in a sense, it's like a bad relationship. You know, when you're in it, you can't really break free of it. But once you break free of it, you start to see, wow, it feels much better. Wow, my body feels looser. I have so many people come back in my, and I just did some stretching before we started. I'm already more flexible than I was a week ago, just on day 4 of my cleanse. And people come back and they flex their hands. You know, I don't have aches and pains when I wake up, and all these different things. So my first level is to look at the abuses. You know, and sometimes they're just a need. I didn't sleep that well last night. I need to get through the day. I need to do some coffee this morning. You know, but often they become daily habits, then abuses, and then addictions where we can't really stop or we get sick. Nicotine is almost always an addiction for regular smokies. Caffeine can be. Sugar is an emotional addiction particularly. But, you know, this is the key, is to look at these habits first with people. And, you know, we need to look at what we're getting from them and to really take an honest view. And if we don't deal with the emotional components of our habits, then we're not easily going to clear them out. Our willpower will work for a while, but we still need to understand what they're doing for us. Okay, if we can keep going. So here's where we want to come back and talk a little bit about the basic acid alkaline. Our bodies are basically alkaline. David and I learned this in medical school. Our tissues are primarily alkaline. Our bloodstream is a little more alkaline. But we eat a diet that has more acidity, and it has to do with how the body breaks down the food. What's left? It's like burning a fire. You have an ash. Well, when you burn your calories, what's left is an ash, and your body has to deal with that. It's mineral deposits, it's other components. And really what happens, I really think the aging process relates to this chronic too acidic diet, and there's several sections in my books that talk about the acid alkaline. I think it's really one of the more important aspects, and I really think it's going to be the future of understanding health and healing. So, you know, and basically fresh fruits and vegetables are, you know, more alkaline. So any kind of detoxification program, I initially called my detox diet, which we'll see in a minute, the alkaline detoxification program, because that's really what I'm trying to do with people. Because when you alkalinize the body, a lot of the inflammatory acidic problems get better. So we see the ash, but you know, the key is the overall balance of the diet. It's not just a particular food. You know, we talked about the snacks before. Well, none of those are terrible by themselves if you do them occasionally. We all can enjoy a little caffeine or a glass of wine or a drink or so. You know, even occasional cigarettes, some people can do that, but most people cannot. When they do it every day. They get a need for it. They get a habit addiction. So the acid alkaline component really is affected primarily by the mineral makeup, and it's based on how your body processes and what foods are left there. So let's scroll down. Let's keep going. And so some of the acid foods, the higher protein foods, which have more phosphorus and sulfur, are what creates a more acid chemistry. When you eat a lot of meat, so this is one of the problems with the high protein diet, is it may help you reduce your caloric intake and your carb intake, but over time I think it's causing some inflammatory problems and aging. So I think we really want a more earth-based, more natural food, a little bit more vegetarian diet, but with some protein that's appropriate for each of our bodies. So we really want to get rid of the white refined food, and if so the higher protein foods that have more phosphorus and sulfur are more acidic. And so it doesn't mean we don't need some of those, but if we have, you know, I think that most of us say that have studied the natural medicine ideas over the last decades, you know, realize that we need a more like 70 to 80% alkaline diet. And so the alkaline diet is more fresh fruits and vegetables. The alkaline minerals are potassium, magnesium, and calcium. I typically use a vitamin C that's buffered with calcium, magnesium, and potassium as part of a detox program. You'll see that later when we go over the supplements. There are some more alkaline grains like buckwheat, quinoa, amaranth, and millet, and really particularly our alkalizing are the leafy greens. So now we're going to go into the world of detox a little bit. And, you know, I think we all can benefit from some level of detox. It doesn't mean going on a fast. I mean, that's one side. You see the variations, but, you know, we become more honest with ourselves when we really start living a more natural lifestyle. And the key and part of my goal with all you listeners is to get you motivated to start taking care of yourself, and not that you aren't, but to really look at this process of detoxification as a way to alter. Now, I don't do detox programs with people or suggest them for a patient because I want them, you know, just to lose 10 pounds or I want them to improve well, I do want them to improve their habits. But the goal is that you go through a process where you can see yourself. You can actually have the experience of feeling better by changing what you're doing, and that when you come out the other side, you're going to say, like I did way back, this is how I want to feel, and here's what it's going to take to continue to feel this way. So I give people, it's like a glimpse of, you know, with this process. And if you ever talk to people who have done a 10-day juice cleanse or they've done a detox program or things like that, they will typically tell you, I felt like I was young again. I felt like I hadn't felt in 10 years or 20 years. I got rid of a lot of the problems that bug me. I realized that I'm toxic. You know, all these different components. So the key is to pay attention for you, because if you're a deficient person, you don't want to go on a fast necessarily. You can still you can still benefit from a detox program where you get rid of your junk and bring in good foods. That's really still detoxification. So you can do this. And then, you know, our goals for detox is to really find the right plan for us. And what I find, if you want to go to the next slide, David, I find that the key goal is just to learn to be aware of what you do and how it affects you. And we want to do that by eating wholesome, good foods, getting rid of the junk, supporting ourselves with some nutrients to help protect us, both on and off detox. And let's see, can you go back one more? And so basically, we finding the right path for us. So if you see, there's a lot of different levels of detoxification. A basic healthy diet is one, and then we go into less toxins and a more elimination diet where you get off sugar, caffeine, alcohol, wheat products, dairy products, things that you're doing a lot of. And can we go back one slide, please?
Sure, sorry about that. Is this where you want to be or further back?
Yeah, I just want to go through, so we have this progression where you see your basic, improved diet all the way down to water fasting. Now, water fasting doesn't give you much energy, but when I do my juice cleanse, like I'm on Master Cleanse and some other broth and the little juices, I usually have lots of energy, and most people do. Not everybody does, but most people do, because you're getting calories in that your cells are using. So, I in the new detox diet, I have 3 different programs in there. One's called the detox diet, which we'll go through in a minute. The other is more of a smoothie cleanse, which is you can do a lot of nutrition, and that's one way for someone who's maybe a little bit depleted to get a lot, or someone who's exercising a lot, get more power-packed nutrition while you're still lowering your calorie intake and lowering your junk. So these are some of the things. Okay, let's progress now.
Okay, I have a quick question, and Sherry does too. Water fast. What would you recommend? What kind of water would you recommend? Distilled water, just filtered water? What do you recommend?
I don't normally recommend distilled water as a regular drink in people's diet, but it can be used during fasting. I think my concern is the way what water does is help your body move. I'll call it bioelectrically. It helps your minerals move around. And my personal opinion, I've written several chapters on water. actually one of the hardest chapters to write because there's not that much good research. There's a lot of, what I call proprietary information. People who sell water purification systems to say, this is the best water, that. So I think that, spring water and or, reverse osmosis water, something like that. And, I have my concerns about regular distilled water.
Okay. Sherry?
Yeah, my question is, if somebody's only ever eaten the basic diet at the top of the list, would you recommend that they do a detox one first for a while and then maybe the fruits and vegetables and not jump straight to a juice?
Yeah. Although many people, Sherry, can, I had this older couple in my group the other day, and I was encouraging them to do a few days of detox because the man is relatively healthy. The woman was on a number of medicines and had a few problems, and I had seen her already a couple times. I was encouraging them to do a few days of detox diet and kind of transition into a juice cleanse. But they chose to just go right into it. And most people do okay. Some people it's pretty intense for, but most people do okay. But typically, if you give yourself the time, I would rather see people take 2, 3, 4 weeks to transition. Slow down their habits and their caffeine and their sugar, and kind of then get rid of it, and then kind of go through these different layers that we talked about, and then go into juices for a few days. In the autumn and in January, I do a 3-week program, which is a detox and then a juice cleanse in the middle, and then coming back into more of a detox, coming back into your new diet, which is always different than when you start, unless you were already really on a healthy diet. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's keep going here then. So here's some of the problems. So the acidic type congestive problems are the best kinds of things to help help with detox. Okay, these are all any kind of itis, so inflammation, arthritis. Many kinds of skin problems, people who are allergic and congested, people with intestinal problems and constipation. Part of detox is keeping your bowels moving and getting things really working, getting fiber back in your diet, getting your peristaltic activity of your digestive tract working. Aches and pains. I have had so many people do my detox diet who come in with bloating and aches and pains and back pain, high cardiovascular problems, high blood pressure, cholesterol. All these things get better in a detox program. Now, I'm speaking to you as a medical doctor who's watched thousands of people with conditions go through these, problems. And I have many people, almost 1 or 2 every year, who does my spring cleanse and detox programs, who are on blood pressure medicines. We all know that lifestyle, and you talk to, and cardiologists who have really kind of observed this. They say lifestyle is really important. You can get people on medicine. Most of the time, medicines, my approach in healthcare is lifestyle first, natural therapy second, drugs last. If I can get people to clean up their diet and get on some nutrients and lose some weight and start exercising and learn how to relax, well, what happens to their blood pressure? It goes down. They don't need their medicines. When they're on a detox program, I watch them. I say, you probably measure your blood pressure, watch if it's going down. I usually have them, when they're cleansing, medicines can be too strong. I often have them cut them in half. I'm not suggesting this to the audience per se, because if you're on medicines, you need somebody to who has experience to be able to guide you. But as a physician, I can watch this, and I'm able to get, have many people are able. I don't say I get them, because they get themselves off their medicines. And I see a lot of patients in my integrated practice, and I'm actually one of the only Northern California medical centers that does an integrated approach using the insurance system. So I actually see a lot of more mainstream people who aren't just looking for alternative doctors. They want a family doctor who's going to help coach them and help them improve their health, and use what they can afford, because many people can't afford to go people outside their insurance. And that we'll see how that all changes. That's a whole different discussion, the healthcare system and how to make it work better. That's partly what Now Medicine is about. So I watch so when people have these congestive acid inflammatory problems, and I have a whole page list of these problems in the new Detox Diet book, they will most often benefit from detox. Now we have a few concerns, which is the next slide. Who we have to watch out for. when people are, no, back up one, please.
I think.
No, let's see. Oh, maybe it comes after this. Okay. So there's, here's some of the benefits of detox. One of my favorite, I guess slogans for natural therapies is I get a lot of side benefits instead of side effects. Okay. So all right. So here's what we have to watch out for. Then we'll come back to those other ones. People who are depleted are usually fatigued. They're cold. Their skin's dry. They're losing their hair. They either have anemia or their thyroid's low. Their adrenals are low. Their blood pressure's low. They're underweight. They have a serious medical problem, things like that. Those are people you want to watch out for. Pregnant women also. I don't have that on the list, but you don't want to do any kind of extreme kind of detoxification. Doesn't mean you can't improve the diet by getting rid of the junk and eating wholesome food. That's always a good idea. But you don't want to do any kind of extreme detoxification. Okay, let's move forward here then. So there's so many benefits. I just mentioned the side benefits, but people feel better. They sleep better. I'm already sleeping better, myself. My energy's good through the day. Medicines can go down. We get more flexible. We have less aches and pains. We just become more alive, which is really one of the joyful things. Like I'll see from my group I met a few days ago. We're going to meet on day 5 of the cleanse. People are going to be chattering. They're going to be so excited and talking to each other, because the nice thing about doing it as a group, and this is one of the things I teach to nutritionists and naturopaths and other practitioners, is how do you get your clientele, your patients, to kind of come together as a group and support each other in doing these kinds of programs, and it really makes a difference. But everybody, their digestion is better, you're communicating better, and okay, next one. And next one. That one we've gone over already. Next slide, please.
Okay. I had detoxification systems, but basic plans for detox.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I summarized. I actually have had three different slides for all the benefits, but I summarized them into one. There's so many benefits that I see with people. But here's our detox systems are our intestinal tract, our sinuses, our lungs, through respiration. Our skin is an important detox organ. I'm missing that slide now. Can you go back?
Sure.
Okay. And our sinuses are often the extra one. And when people have that, when they have a lot of sinus congestion, that's their body's attempt to detoxify. All right, let's progress a little more quickly now, because I see we're taking our time with this. We're going to have to do a part 2. So I mentioned earlier there's a lot, there's different programs. There's a detox diet, there's a smoothie cleanse, there's juicing, and you can do a combination of these. A lot of times I'll have people do juices in the morning, a smoothie in the afternoon, and then a little vegetable soup or vegetables or salad in the evening. And the key is that we're doing this as a transitional plan. Okay, next.
Okay. The new detox diet.
There we go. All right, so here's a simple detox diet, and this is in my book. You can find it on my website also, elsonhaas.com. But basically, I got to get people to chew well. They drink water in the morning. They start with some lemon water. Breakfast, so it's 3 meals. It's different than juice cleansing. People still get to eat 3 meals. It starts with some fruit and whole grain cereal, not wheat, but you can do oatmeal, you can do cream of rice, you can do even brown rice. People sometimes do like a hard squash, like butternut squash. And then lunch and dinner are steamed mixed vegetables. So ideally you do seasonal vegetables. You see what's available. It's not all root vegetables, so it's not just all potatoes, beets, and carrots. But there's green beans. There's a cruciferous like broccoli or cauliflower. There's some greens, leafy greens. So there's a mixture there. And you do that at lunch and dinner, and you eat fairly early, so you have the evening without eating. And then you also save the water from the veggies and drink that mid-morning and mid-afternoon. And some of the nutrients we use, we can do at that time. Okay, next.
Boy, it's slow tonight. I changed it as soon as you mentioned it. Mention next.
All right. So there's also there's also better butter that I talk about, which is a mixture of organic butter and olive oil or flaxseed oil or just flaxseed oil by itself. I have people do some protein if they need that in the afternoon. And I have people just drink herb teas at night. And that's, typically, I want people to have good 12 to 14 hours of not eating. And that really is what helps the detoxification system. And we also want to make sure we exercise and sweat, get massage. I don't have people just sit around when they're cleansing, when they're detoxing. It's important that you get your body moving, you exercise and sweat and do all that. Okay, next. See, I have mine here. Yeah, so typically I have people do this. This is a perfect time. The seasonal detox. Let's talk just about spring and the warmer months because that's where we are now. We're looking at juice cleansing. It's an optimal time to do it. If you're in a colder climate, if you're in the northeast of the U.S. or Canada or other places, you may want to wait till mid-April to May even to do your cleanse. But it's still a good time now to detoxify. So next slide, and the juice cleansing is really as it gets warmer, it's a good time to do that.
Why is that so, Dr. Haas?
When you eat lighter and when you go on juices, your body tends to get cooler. So you actually it's easy to get cold. So that's why you want warmer climate. You want a little longer days. You want to support your body. Its energy. Now, one of the things about Master Cleanser, which is, let's go to the next slide and go into Master Cleanser, please. The nice thing about Master Cleanse is that it has a little cayenne pepper in it, so it helps keep the body warmer, helps, clear the body of fluids, and it's just a natural stimulant. And here's the formula for Master Cleanser. This is for 1 glass. It's 2 tablespoons of fresh squeezed lemon juice. You can use lime juice depending on where you are. 1 tablespoon of pure maple syrup. The original formula is 2 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons of lemon, but I think that's a little too sweet, and most people don't need that much. If you're someone who doesn't want to lose much weight, then you would use more maple syrup. And for people who are sugar sensitive, they can use things like blackstrap molasses in it, but I don't have people use honey necessarily. Also, that's 1/10 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 8 ounces of water, and how I make it is I put it in a glass. So you're going to drink 8 to 12 glasses a day, but don't put it in plastic because the lemon, the acids in the lemon do 2 things. They interact with the plastics and cause toxins to get into it if you let it sit there. And also, you need to rinse your mouth with water after you drink it. So I encourage people when they're doing Master Cleanser to drink a glass or 2 at a time over a few minutes, rather than just sip it every 10 minutes, have a little sipping, because both 2 things. One is you're getting too much on your teeth, and that the citric acid and ascorbic acid in lemon can start to eat and pull the calcium out of your enamel of your teeth. So you really want to drink a glass or so or 2, and then rinse your mouth with water, have a little water, swallow it. And that's a way to protect your mouth. And also, you're not re-stimulating because you're going to absorb that. You're going to get some sugars going into your body. You're not going to keep having sugar going into your bloodstream every 10 minutes, but more like every hour or 2 is a better way to do it, so your body's not constantly dealing with insulin and adrenal function to balance that blood sugar. Okay, so supplements that we take while we're on the detox plan, because you're eating 3 meals a day on that, you're doing a multivitamin mineral. While you're doing Master Cleanse, I don't have people take pills, other than the things that are absolutely prescribed. I have people take powders, liquids more, because your body can't really break down those pills as much when you're not eating. During the detox, though, any kind of detox, you want to support your body with nutrients. You want to take antioxidants. I mentioned vitamin C powder, buffered powder with some calcium, magnesium, and potassium in it. And also people who are detoxifying, the calcium, magnesium taken at bed helps relax them, helps protect from getting cramps, and things like that. So the next slide has more things. I often have people, even during juice cleansing, do blue-green algae or spirulina, chlorella, or a mixture. There's a lot of green powders out. I think these are really good for purifying the body, detoxifying the body. They're good. They provide some amino acids and nutrients so your body's feeling nourished. Like when I go exercise now, I didn't used to do this the first years of doing my spring cleanse, but now I do a little bit of greens and a little of my juice before I go exercise and things like that, because it gives me a little bit more energy and a little more strength to do the kind of workouts I like. It's important that we keep our bowels moving. So some people need teas like Smooth Move or some kind of laxative teas, or herbs like herbal formulas for the bowels. You don't want to overdo it, and some people actually go and get therapies like colon hydrotherapy and things like that, or do enemas. There's all kinds of things you read about, but it's important. The key is that you want to do keep your bowels moving. With Master Cleanser, there's a saltwater flush that people drink. They make up a proportion. I don't want people to misunderstand it, so I'm not even going to state it here, but it's a combination of sea salt and water, and you make it in a certain way to balance your body, and that helps cleanse through your intestinal tract. But also during detox, we can do different herbs to help support or balance our body, to stimulate energy. Herbs for the for the liver might be milk thistle, silymarin, which protects the liver, supports the liver and the detoxification. Different ginsengs can help support the body in stress, particularly Siberian ginseng. Ginger is good, and all these other things. Okay? So generally,
I noticed, I was reading the book, the Fat Flush Plan by Anna Louise Gittleman, and she referred to you working with her in helping to write the book, and she mentioned she really focuses a lot on liver cleansing.
Yes, yes. Well, it's based on an adapted concept from my False Fat Diet book, but hers is much more specific, and she's a good ally and friend of mine, and she's got some great books out. And yeah, the Fat Flush Plan is good. I mean, all these things are, and she's got a couple books on detox also, and it's all the same message. When you really start studying health and natural medicine, it becomes pretty clear. The message that I've said to you all is start eating wholesome, healthy, fresh foods more, and get rid of the chemicals and junk that we're consuming just mindlessly on a day-to-day basis. So here's the best foods that support us are leafy greens, sprouts. I mean, sprouts is like one of the missing links in nutrition, I think. It's the most live food that we can eat when we have nuts and seeds and legumes like beans or garbanzo beans or lentils that we start and sprout. And I have it's a whole discussion, but I have ways of how to do that in my books. But those are really important live foods. Lots of fruits and vegetables which give us the enzymes and the phytonutrients. Good oils, fish if you're going to have protein, oily fish, lots of fiber and water. If we eat a wholesome, healthy, nature-based diet, we're going to get that fiber we need. And next slide is how we keep ourselves well, healthy for a long time. Is that most people, and one of the main messages I get from my groups is they come back in all the different groups, whether it's just a detox or a juice cleansing group. It's amazing. It's how little food I need to feel really good. And most of us probably eat twice as much. And one of the some of the studies that show improved longevity in animals, and it's starting to show that in humans also, is when we get nourished, but we're not overeating, we're undereating a little bit. We're keeping our body trim. I think the key to good health is eating seasonally, local, fresh, wholesome food, lots of fruits and vegetables, taking some supplements as we need them, and that's appropriate, and that's where they individualize, and that's what I get into in my Staying Healthy with Nutrition book, and keeping our digestion really working. And next one is more just about this, similar message is that, a wholesome, the Mediterranean diet is probably the diet, I think that has been shown to be the most protective of our brain function and Alzheimer's and heart cardiovascular health and reducing all that and, detoxifying our body. But, we can make a difference. It doesn't matter whether you're a 20-year-old listening or a 70-year-old. I mean, you can make a difference. If you start looking at your habits and cleaning those up and doing that, you're going to feel better and better. So much of our health is under our control, and one of the another message I have is when you make better choices, you're often going to have better health. So the key to changing habits is we have to look at why we're doing it, what are we feeding ourselves? I look at this all the time, because when you work with people in losing weight, if you don't address how they get love in their lives or how their self-image is, it's hard to get them to make those changes. But you still need to get your willpower together. You can't do it all, and you need to get your plan. So all of you from here, I would suggest that you all look at 3 things that you can do in your day-to-day life right now. It's 3 habits that you could change, 3 positive things that you could do to make a difference in your health. And I think doing it, getting, if you're listening or you have any of my books or you have any kind of book on detox, if you can get a friend or a coworker to do it with you, it'll be much easier for you. The part of the problem is when you get people trying to feed you cake or ice cream or beer or coffee when you're trying to get away, and they're saying, "Oh, what are you doing?" So that's important. And the whole detoxification program, you want to really learn about acid alkaline, and you want to keep your body more alkaline, and you're going to do that. You're not going to do that if you don't have at least 50% fruits and vegetables in your diet. And make sure you eat your greens and drink water and exercise. So those are all the basics. Next one. And our health is important and essential, yet many people don't realize it until they lose it. And that's a real concern, is that, here's your health note, and men are more guilty of this, I think, than women, is that they don't really, unless they break down on the side of the road, they don't fix their car. Unless their body falls apart, they don't, they don't take care of it. So I think that's enough for here. Here you have a slide up now that has my contact information and my websites, elsonhaas.com, ELSONHAAS.com, and from there you can go to my clinic and all kinds of free health tips and articles and all that. And I'm enjoying being with you. And now if there's any questions that you, David and Sherry, have, or any of the listeners have, let's get into that for a little bit.
Dr. Haas, I'll start with a question. A couple of times you've mentioned your detox group or your cleansing group, and I was just wondering what the benefit you have found in having people do this together as a group versus just people doing it individually.
Well, as I mentioned a couple times, I think the support. I mean, we need to feel like we're part. We get through things better when we're a team, okay? Where we're not carrying everything on our shoulders and we have every little thing. So when I do it as groups, people meet each other. They share a little bit. I go around the circle and everybody says their name and why they're there, and I create a sheet that everybody gets a copy of that has each person's name, a phone number if they want to put that in, and an email address. Like I just emailed, I don't know if I have any listeners from my group, but I just emailed them a while ago and said, I'm doing this, if you want to, while you're on your spring cleanse, if you want to tune in and listen, come to a Building Strength webinar. So I sent them a link, and maybe there's a few of them on there. But I think it's just really what I find, because I give people individual programs in practice. I would say probably somewhere 40 to 50% of people will do a program sitting across one-on-one with a desk, across the desk for me. But I would say more like 90% of people are successful in doing it when they do it as a group. So there's support. Now when we meet again on day 5 tomorrow evening, people will get to share a little bit. They'll learn from each person's experience. They'll see that maybe their experience was unique, or maybe it was very similar to other people's. But I will tell you, by the third meeting that we have, people are going to be like, wow, okay, what are you going to do now for the rest of your life? How did this affect you? So that shared experience makes it powerful. I mean, we're tribal. Most of us are, we're tribal culture. The humanoids, and we like to be supported. Everybody wants other people to be like them. That's why when people are drinking coffee or alcohol or doing drugs, they want their friends to do it with them because they don't want to feel left alone. When I first started doing cleansing back in the mid to later 70s, when people would see a friend or a family member and say, oh yeah, I haven't eaten, this is day 7 of my cleanse, they would freak out on them. They would think that they were crazy because it wasn't as acknowledged. Nowadays it is more, but still people can be afraid of that. Oh, I heard that's bad. Oh, I heard this. Or it's the same as about sending someone to a chiropractor. Oh, I heard somebody got injured doing that. Well, I mean, people get injured going to doctors and taking medicines. People can get injured, walking along the street. But I think the likelihood of that is not very high. And I've probably had, as I say, more than 3,000 to 5,000 people that I've watched do detox programs. I haven't lost anybody yet. I've had, I would say 7 out of 10 people have very positive results. a couple people have, okay results, and maybe one person is too challenged and they have to kind of, stop it or change it, or they can't really handle it well. So, but typically it's a much higher percentage than any other kind of treatment I do in practice. And so, that's the answer, Sherry, is that it just makes it easier, and it really hits home more, and it has a longer term effect when people are doing it and learn from each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it's also. I think that's just also impressive that people begin to think better, and their emotional lives improve when they cleanse. I thought that was really key.
And part of cleansing, I tell people during their cleanse time, like I do, clean up your house, clean up your closet, get rid of stuff. Don't just do your body, do your life. And that's a lot. I mean, I keep my house much cleaner when I'm on, and I start going through piles of papers, and I clean the stuff, all my supplements I got on my kitchen counter. I take those all off, clean up, and simplify them. And so it really, it makes a difference. It's a way of thinking. It's about being current. I remember a quote from a man who founded actually a nice healing center up in Northern California. But his quote during his first cleanse, where he said, the procrastination has left my life. I feel current, and when I think about things, I do them. Mm-hmm. And that was his profound experience. But other people have different ones too. But I find that I just stay much more present in everything when I'm on my detox programs.
And that's every year for 10 days.
At least 10 days. Sometimes 14 days, and sometimes I just started and I said, well, I'm not eating again until April. When are you eating again? People ask. So, it depends how I'm doing. I adapt it. What I find that when people get into this place, where they're starting to lighten up, they become so much more self-aware and clear about what they need and what their body is. And if their body says, I'm done, I need to start eating again, they start doing that. And if they feel like they want to keep going, so some people will keep going. Mm-hmm. And so, I would say, so I've definitely fasted way more than a year of my life. If I did it all together, I probably wouldn't be around, or I'd be really, really skinny. However, I do it as a way, it's almost like my spring ritual. And to me, it keeps me, keeps me younger and healthier than if I had continued eating the American diet in my family's lifestyle, and just getting, overweight with my blood pressure up and my cholesterol up and my blood sugar up and being on medicines. And, I believe that I'm staying healthy longer and keeping myself more youthful, and will hopefully, I believe, live longer, although every day I prepare. If it's my last day, I just do the best I can, because we never really know that. So and that's part of also living in the present moment. Being clear with that, here I am right now. What am I going to wait for? If I don't, my part of my goal is just to stay in a place of love and giving as much as I can, and say yes when I can. So those are some of my personal mottos of life, and it keeps me in a happy place. My associate Bethany Argyle, who I'm working on all these songs with and all our work with children, and you'll see a little bit of that if you go to my website. We have a company called Season Studio Partners, and we have several projects that are ready for completion for children's health education. Because to me, if we don't learn how to take care of the human body, we're so inundated with what I call misinformation from early on, from birth on, and even parents about what is needed for their children. We need to bring the rules of good health to young children so that they know what it takes to keep their body healthy. If they think it's sugar cereal and milk and sodas and all the treats that they can get, well, that they're going to find out later. And it's being a preventive medicine doctor, I want to find out things sooner. I want to look ahead 20 years, 30 years to say, if I keep living this way, what's my likely consequences, or outcome? Sometimes it's consequence, sometimes it's a positive outcome, depending on how we're handling it.
Great. Well, Sherry and I we're going to be going back and forth because we have a couple of questions coming in from our guests. But real quick, just want to mention, if you are here on this webinar at Dr. Haas's invitation, please let us know. We'd like to know how many of his patients or cold cleansers are on the webinar. So if you just type in the box to your right, there's a small slot there where it says questions, and you can just let us know if you're on the call or not. All right, I'm going to ask this question. Can you comment on using 6 heaping teaspoons full of Epsom salts in warm water to kickstart a cleanse?
You'll kickstart your intestinal tract. You know, I don't know the amounts of Epsom salts to water and how much to drink. I use sea salt. I mentioned earlier, and the formula written about originally, and I've done many times, is 2 level teaspoons of good sea salt in a quart of lukewarm water. Now, Epsom salt, so that's sodium chloride. Now, Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate. It's a different salt, and we all know that magnesium is a mild intestinal stimulant. So typically I have people start on their detox first before I have them flush out their intestinal tract. So it doesn't mean that it can't be done, and probably obviously some people have likely done that, but I haven't started cleanses that way. I usually do, you know, I get the bowels moving, because your bowels will move naturally a couple days, and then they'll start to slow down if you don't put anything in there other than fluids. So that's when you want to flush it out, and if you look in my books and some on my website, there's a lot of ways that we can keep our bowels going. And it's different from each person. Some people won't go at all if they don't do some kind of stimulation, and other people will just keep going. They can just drink fluids, and they'll just keep having bowel movements, you know. They become watery after a while, but that's an important area of detoxification, is making sure the bowels work well.
Okay, Dr. Haas, I'll ask you a question about protein. Can you get enough protein as a vegetarian without proper combining of foods?
Yeah, I've written a lot about that in Staying Healthy with Nutrition. Well, when you're a vegetarian, when you get rid of the main, you know, human protein foods, which is animals, that's how most people get their protein, including eggs. You know, and eggs is probably one of the better proteins, but not everybody handles them well. You need a variety of foods, and it's harder to get adequate protein in for some people. Now, I've written a fair amount about vegetarianism. I'm a supporter of it, but it takes a lot more work, especially when young people who become vegetarian. They tend to eat, you know, bread and cheese as their, you know, primary food, and that's not necessarily a healthy diet. So yes, you can be a healthy vegetarian. It takes more work than when you include more variety of foods. The idea of combining proteins may be a little looser, and I've written an update about that in Chapter 3 of Staying Healthy with Nutrition. You know, I think if we eat a variety of foods over the day, we're probably building our amino acid pool. We don't have to eat them exactly at the same time. But again, that's where you want to do sprouted beans and grains and beans and nuts and seeds. And if you'll eat eggs and dairy. I'm not a big fan of dairy products. I think most people don't need nearly as much as they eat, but some people can handle them. You know, I think yogurt's probably the best choice out of that because it's already acted on. It's, you know, has some fermentation, and it's been partly digested in a sense by healthy bacteria. So that may be a little better.
What if you have a constipation problem and you don't have a gallbladder? Is it from a toxic body, or is it because of not having a gallbladder?
Theoretically, they're not related. Many people who don't have gallbladders, the gallbladder concentrates bile from the liver, the bilirubin, into bile, and it's released when you eat fats. It does help keep everything working, but you can certainly have normal bowel function and normal digestion, you know, relatively normal digestion, without having a gallbladder. You know, I haven't really looked at whether more people who don't have gallbladders have constipation issues. I think it has a lot to do with the diet and the stress and the whole function of the intestinal tract.
Okay. If somebody has prone to diabetes, is there a problem with any of these things? Somebody said 5 days. Is that dangerous for people who are prone to diabetes?
Well, again, if you have diabetes, blood sugar problems, and you're on medicine or you're on insulin, you have to be extra cautious. If you're at the early state of diabetes where your fasting blood sugar is 105, 110, 115, you're not on medicines, you're a little overweight, you will highly benefit from a detox program and kind of cleaning up your diet and getting rid of the sugars and the sodas and all those things and dropping some weight, because then guess what? You won't have diabetes anymore. Doesn't mean you're not prone to it, years out, but I think a lot of the problems that people get in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s even, if they were making better choices before that, then maybe they wouldn't get them at all, or they might get them in their 70s and 80s. So yeah, I've had people even do master cleanse with me, 10 days with diabetes. They just have to watch it. They have to be monitored either by their doctor or practitioner, or many people with diabetes. That's one of the medical problems, that many people monitor themselves. And if you're monitoring your blood sugars, you just got to pay attention to that and whatever medicines you take. But it's doable, definitely doable.
I've heard that with calorie reduction, there is a chance to lose muscle as well as fat. Do you see much muscle loss during these fasts?
I think there's a potential for that. That's why I have people do greens and a little amino acids sometimes. In a short term, we're talking to 7 days, you're not going to get much loss, 7 to 10 days. But when you do your green powders that have amino acids in them and so a little bit of protein, building potential, I think it happens less. And the thing is also, when you do a water fast, your body looks, when you understand your biochemistry, you will go to proteins to get amino acids, because some of those amino acids you can convert into sugars to feed your cells in your body. When you're having juices coming in, you're using those sugars, especially Master Cleanser and the maple syrup or blackstrap molasses or whatever you're using, which is people with sugar problems, I usually have them use more blackstrap molasses, much less sugary, more nutrient rich. When they're doing that, they do fine with it.
Okay. You had mentioned there's certain things that we need to avoid: refined sugar, wheat, and what were the other things that we need to be sure to avoid?
The trans fats, the hydrogenated fats, and chemicals particularly. And those were the other couple on that discussion.
Okay, that's SNAP.
Oh, and then there was also the big five, which is like if you just want to say, okay, I'm going to take 2 weeks and just see how I do from this Haas's ideas here. Let me see if I can do this. Now this is hard for some people, but easier for others. They would go off. So you say, okay, for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to get off caffeine. So that's colas, coffee, even black teas and things like that. You're going to get off alcohol. You're going to get off sugar, any refined added sugars to foods. You can do natural sugars, like fruits and things like that. And you get off wheat products, because there's so many people eat those too often. And you would get off dairy products because many people are reactive to it. And you do that. Now, if there's anything else you eat really regularly, or you have a habit to, you may want to take a break from that also. And just pay attention. How do I feel now in a week? Don't go by how you feel the next day, because you might feel worse the next day. But how do I feel in a week? How do I feel in 2 weeks? And then what you can do, which is what I write about in the purification process article, you can start one at a time bringing these things into your body and just see how you feel. Give it a part of the day. And when and you can do this. I have in my false fat diet book, the Sensitive 7, where I have people get off sugar, wheat, and dairy are the big three. Then corn, soy, eggs, and peanuts, which are other common food reactions. And so you do any kind of elimination diet, and then slowly you bring one back at a time and watch how you are fairly immediately, like in the first half hour to hour. Maybe 3 or 4 hours later, did it alter anything else? Because some kinds of reactions are delayed. They're not immediate, like a true allergy. And then you look at how do you feel the next day when you wake up. Do you feel altered? Are you headachy? Are you sluggish? Did that substance that you took in, bother you in some way? So that's a simple process there.
And which book do you write about that in?
Well, I write about it in the new detox diet and the false fat diet. Now, those two books make up the process in the article purification process. Okay, because the detox is dealing with the snacks, sugar, nicotine, alcohol, caffeine, and chemicals, and the false fat book is about dealing with foods and food reactions. So we put those two things together, and that really helps the body take a break from things and heal.
Okay, back to the gallbladder question. I have a friend who has had her gallbladder removed and says she can't take fish oil for omega-3 supplementation. Could you please comment?
Well, that's not true for everybody. Some people who have their gallbladder removed are sensitive to fats and oils, and they have to be cautious. They have to kind of see how much they can handle and what, and this is part of the individualization. Sometimes you can take additional digestive enzymes, and there's actually companies that produce pure lipase enzyme for fat digestion, and often that's a helpful thing for people to do when they don't have their gallbladder in, because they maybe need a little help at digesting some of the fats. And people who have gallbladder problems, sluggish gallbladder or stones in their gallbladder, they may be sensitive when they eat, nuts and seeds or creamy dressings or dairy products or anything that's fatty, because they may have a little trouble. It may stimulate their gallbladder, and they get contractions there, and then that causes them more pain.
Another question is, some detox diets suggest apple juice only for cleansing. Do you have a comment on that?
When I first did my first cleanse, I started reading everything I could about it. There wasn't that many books out then, but way back then in the 70s, there was Pablo Arola, Bernard Jensen. They were naturopaths writing about cleansing and detox. I did an apple juice cleanse, and it's a good cleanse. It's just a different type of cleanse. What I find with Master Cleanser is that it's much more energizing, and people feel good, and they can go to work, and they can I made some really nice, even on the first and second day of my cleanse, I made some nice meals up for a couple people who I was going to visit, so, I can be in that state and make food. But there's a lot of different cleanses, and there's a lot of programs. You go to the health food store, you'll see how many products there are. The detox problem, 7-day detox thing, but those are herbal detoxes, and I really encourage people to do a food and an elimination type detox, not just take herbs to stimulate the detox process.
And
so
I just want to
let's have a couple more questions, and then maybe we can call it a night.
Okay. I just want to make a comment, too, to everybody. If you do go to Dr. Haas's website, the elsonhaas.com, there are tons of articles on there that are just a wealth of knowledge. And most of these questions we've been asking are all answered even more in depth in those articles.
Right. And in my books, too, I write about, people's idea about the gallbladder flush. And, I have my own, I guess, experience and understanding of all these different kinds of topics, and much more subtle topics. And really, when you start reading things, they inspire you more deeply. They'll guide you. When you hear something that sounds right for you, and you say, "Aha, that makes sense to me," those are usually the things that you can follow through on. Because they're much more aligned with who you are.
I just have two more questions, and I think they're real quick. Someone mentioned tinnitus. A lady, she wants to know about how that relates with toxins and detox.
Well, tinnitus, we usually say, but because it's not an itis in the sense that it's an inflammation, but it's ringing in the ears, and it's a very subtle kind of symptom. It has to do a lot with the structure of the ear, and but it may be related to food reactions a bit. I haven't seen that detox is that dramatic for it, but I have seen some people get some improvement with it. But it's hard to know, because many people have it that it comes and goes. So it's not something that's an easy thing for, I think, practitioners of any modality to treat once people have that, because it's a subtle effect of the nerves and the bones of the ears that maybe sets off this different sounds that we have.
All right, final question. I've heard that with, I'm not sure if you answered this, but I've heard that with calorie reduction there is a chance to lose muscle as well as fat. Have you answered that?
Yeah, you asked me that before, and I think, realize you're doing this temporarily, and I think part of good long-term health is that, most people eat way too many calories, and that's why we have such a big society. Maybe it helps as we're growing to get, eat a higher protein, higher calorie diet, because we certainly make sure we get what we need, but I think there's a concern with excessive protein, excessive fats, excessive calories, and so part of this, remember I mentioned earlier, and this is kind of maybe a good concluding concept, is that the reason that you do any kind of break, detox, juice cleanse, is to look at where you are. I mean, I do what I call, in a sense, transformational medicine. So I help people see where they are. I call that point A, okay? That's wherever you are, where you're starting, okay? Then I say, well, where do you want to be? What are your goals, So I want to take people from point A to point B. Now, depending on what your goals are, if it's lose 50 pounds or get rid of some serious disease, well, that may be more complicated and take longer, or it may not even be easily possible. But if your goals are to, I want to improve my health, I want to get my digestion better, I want to help clear some of the symptoms that I have that I'm beginning, my aches and pains in my joints, etc. And then you look at how can you get there, and the best way to do it is to clean up your lifestyle, to support yourself with natural therapies, and not necessarily rely on drugs. Even though I'm a family doctor who does integrated practice. I write prescriptions every day that I practice, but I would prefer not to if but some people come in and they're sick. It's very common to see somebody who's had bronchitis, a relatively healthy person, or someone who's not so healthy. They've tried, they've had bronchitis now for 3 weeks. They've tried, echinacea, golden seal. They've taken garlic. They've taken vitamin A and vitamin C, and they've rested and things like that. They're still not better. Well, maybe we still need to get rid of that infection, and then then they can use that same energy they've been fighting off the infection to get better. And so that's where medicines are. And also, if I'm dealing with somebody, maybe I might have sounded a little aloof about, oh yeah, we can clear up cholesterol and blood pressure and all that. Well, I have a lot of patients. Sometimes it's harder to get their blood pressure down and their cholesterol, and even when they go through detox and then they get back eating again, you can maybe reduce that. But my goal in practice is that I want to get results. So if I can get your blood pressure down naturally, that's what I want to do. But if I can't, then you're going to have a combination. This is an integrated approach where it's a combination of medicines and nutrients and diet and stress and reduction and all those things. So that's really what we're looking at. So all that we talked about today is a detoxification process that helps you move from one way of being to a new way, which hopefully is a healthier, more vital way. And that's really what you would use the detoxification and the kind of work that I write about and teach for yourselves. So thank you all, and I hope that you all stay healthy.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Haas. And really, what you've shared, I'm sure you go through this each step for like 10 days. I mean, what you've kind of tried to compress within the little amount of time we have here.
Yes, you see, it can easily be a day-long seminar, just the whole process of detoxification and giving people experience. I mean, that's the thing. I often say this, and I speak to doctors often, and they don't like to hear this often, but everything in medicine and healthcare is an experiment. But really, that means it's an experience. I mean, you don't know just because something's worked for somebody before that it's going to work for this individual, and that's why each patient, each person out there needs to watch their own experience and pay attention and not just say, oh, my doctor knows all, therefore I'm just going to do and not even think about it. I want people to be awake and aware, and one of my goals when I became a doctor in the early 70s was I want people to be aware of what they do and how that affects them. And I'm still teaching that same message, which is if you don't you don't often know that until you take a break from things and come back to them and say, okay, I can see this really upsets my gut, This does this does that, and that's what really I want people to awaken to.
Well, we really appreciate that, and in our own little way too, we're trying to help do that. So it was just a blessing to be able to.
Education, health education is power, I say. So let's keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Thank you both for your time and energy to do your wonderful webinars.
Yes. Thank you,
Dr.
Haas.
Haas.
Okay, take care.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah. Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow.